Welcome back to the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. As always, I'm your host, Max Renk, and today's episode looks a little different from our usual deep dives with our agronomy and seed experts here at Renk. This time, we're turning the microphone over to our dealers and growers across the Midwest to hear about their 2025 seasons. No two farms or seasons are ever the same. While seed selection and agronomy played huge roles in having a successful harvest, it always comes down to the stories that play out in the field. Today, you'll hear from 5 of our Renk dealers and growers, each with a unique perspective on what the season taught them, what challenges they experienced, and what made 2025 a season to remember. To jump in, we're heading up to Gillette, Wisconsin, to chat with longtime corn grower Marty Luther. Marty has seen more than a few harvests in his day, but this year gave him a bit of everything, from early planting, heavy rains, drought, and even a tornado. Here's Marty's story.
I'm Marty Luther from Gillette, Wisconsin. Luther Farms, LLC. I am a Renk dealer.
What kind of farming do you do, Marty?
Well, we custom farm a little bit of corn planting, quite a bit of corn combining, soybeans. We run 500 acres of our own, plus my grandson's probably run a couple hundred acres. Organic, his is.
Gotcha. And you said he's got a dairy now?
Yes, organic dairy.
How many years now have you been farming, Marty?
Well, I'm 76 years old, and I'd moved maybe 100 yards from the old house to the new house. That's all I ever moved in my life. So I took over the farm in 79. I was doing some cash cropping before that. I've been doing it a couple of years.
And so my big question for you today, Marty, is what was your expectation for this year's crop, and what experience did you end up with?
Well, the way it started out, we got stuff planted early. We were done planting our own, I think, the 19th of May. It started out real good, and then we started getting rain right after. We had a couple of neighbors to plant for yet. Started getting rain, and there was 2 farms. One that we got completely tiled. We couldn't get in there to spray it. We were getting stuck. And I found out after a while that they had 4.5 inches of rain there. Whew. A week later, we went in. It went right across the top. You didn't hardly leave a track. Well, we went to a farm that we rent 4 miles north of there. It wasn't supposed to rain till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just got done filling the sprayer, and it started sprinkling. So a week later, we were in there. My grandson called me, go get the tractor. He was buried in the middle of the field.
Never get buried at the edge, do you?
Yeah, he left ruts in there. We'll combine that. We finished that 2 days ago. No, that was a different number, but everything else that we had on 300 acres at least, 561, drought tolerant, we came pretty close to averaging 200 bushel a acre. Well, we had all that rain, and then it turned dry. I just seen on TV from Green Bay this morning, there's a little area, and we're right on the edge of it. Extreme drought is what's going on here. Well, I am happy with the crop we got this year. It's unreal.
So harvest went pretty well?
Yeah, well, we finished up day before yesterday. We're done with everybody. Custom work, everything, we're done. And that's unheard of for us.
What time of the year do you normally finish up?
Beginning of December, usually at the earliest. Once in a while, Christmas, sometimes the next spring.
Oh, the ever joys, right? Especially being up north.
Yep. Summer, we had a tornado come through, and we own a house on the highway that the father-in-law lives in. It's a mile from driveway to driveway. It took a new shop down. There's a guy that he works on construction equipment, built a new shop 2 years ago. It actually sucked it in. The roof whole structure was sucked right inside.
Holy cow.
Our place is a half a mile down the road, and I mean, it took trees down. We got a bunch of trees still laying in the edge of the cornfield. I combined around them. And the neighbors right on the corner by us, you could see where that tornado cut a V through there. Well, there was corn, soybeans. What a miserable. I never seen soybeans laid flat, but you couldn't pick beans up.
And that was just from the tornado. I mean, that is one heck of a storm then, huh?
Beginning of August is when that come through. And that went from like 20 miles west of us. It went all the way to O'Connell, to the bay. And it pretty much followed Highway 22 here. No, I am tickled with my yield. I got one other guy. I sold him by 68. And just Roundup ready. He had a field 1.5 miles straight east of me. And he called me up in summer. He wanted a sign on there. He says, it's the best corn I ever grew. He sells liquid fertilizer. I started getting liquid fertilizer from him. But he had called me up in summer. He says, you got to get a sign on there. He says, that's some of the best corn I ever grew. When he harvested, he called me up early in the morning. He tickled 235 bushel the acre on 568. This year, he had stuff, Cecil, which is 13 miles west of here. He had a field there. When he got done harvesting that, he called me again 6:30 in the morning. No-tilled. He averaged 195.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just tickled with it.
Yeah, those are some pretty big numbers there.
Yeah, I'm 568. Maybe I should go back to that, but this 561 is pretty good.
568 is one of those hybrids that comes around once in a generation or maybe a couple times in a generation. Even with the weather all over the place for Marty in Wisconsin, he pulled off one of his best crops yet. Next, we're talking with Robbie Uhlenhake, a farmer in Northeast Iowa, who had high expectations going into the growing season. While he didn't meet last year's numbers, he still landed a top harvest despite a few surprises along the way.
Hi, I'm Rob Uhlenhake. I'm in Northeast Iowa here, small town of Hoshin. So about 35 miles from the Minnesota border and 35 from the Wisconsin. So right in the corner there. Been a Renk dealer. I think this is going on my 4th year now. Been farming since 2004. So got a few years of raising some crops under my belt. So.
And then how many acres do you guys farm?
I farm right at 350 acres.
So my big question for you today, Rob, is what was your expectation for this year's crop and what was the actual experience for it?
Had pretty high expectations, going in. Didn't think it was going to be a record crop by any means. But by the time we got finished up, I'd say it was within the top 3 or 4 of the best crops that we had. So
that's awesome. And do you know where any of your bushels fell there for some of those varieties?
Most of the farm averages, I would say anywhere from 240 up to 260. Caught the bulk of it. There was a little bit, got up to around over 270. And I would say a good chunk of the area, that 230 to 260 probably took 90% of the acres around here, talking to a few of the neighbors. So wasn't as good as last year, but it was close. General consensus was everybody thought we were about 20 bushels back, 20 to 30 back from last year. And that's, I would say, hit it pretty close. Most of the excitement was probably after the harvest got done. Trying to clean the combine up, I did have a little bad luck there and found a raccoon that tried to make his way through the fan in there. So that was a little disheartening for the end of the season. So made it through pretty well the whole way. A few breakdowns here and there, but nothing major. It was a nice fall too. It seemed like we didn't get rained out too often. So guy wasn't pushed real hard. So we had a bearing go out or a belt go bad here and there. And we just kind of worked through it.
And that's all good news. Did you have anything else you wanted to share then with us, Robbie?
Yields were good, but moisture-wise, the corn dried down really nice, and it was really easy corn to dry. It went through the dryers really well, it seemed like. Test weight was decent, nothing real spectacular out there. It was good corn by the end of the day. So as long as we get some good prices this winter, I think everything should work out good.
What did you put in the ground for varieties?
Anywhere from, usually we shoot kind of that 96 up to 106 day. I had 586 VT4P, and that one was the first year for having that one commercial, and that was an eye-opener. And I think the VT4Ps, they look like they're going to be pretty strong. 630 Tricepta, I had really good luck with that. It did really well for me. Seemed like it was a high yielder. Standability was a little questionable. I think it's one of them that's going to need fungicide and a little more management to it, but otherwise that did really well. 720 Smart Stack Pro was probably our top one. That was the leader on everything, and that really nice, healthy plant, a lot of nice leaves to it. Made some beautiful bedding behind it after we got done.
I believe that. Well, it sounds like it was a pretty successful harvest then.
Yeah, for the year, we had that early cold stress, and then the rust coming in late. I don't ever remember having rust around, but after seeing that, yeah, it's an eye-opener. That can really knock the corn yields back in a hurry.
Well, it sounds like you ended on the tail end of when you rust showing up, so it worked out pretty well.
Yep, and even watching that too in the neighborhood, it's the drones, they did pretty well, but there was some of the coverage on that wasn't the best. But I can't say there was much of a leading edge versus the helicopters or the planes on it too. They all had streaking. I think ground rigs by far is better coverage, but in our terrain up here where a lot of rolling and contours, it's just not always ideal for the ground rigs to get in there. So it seems like we get a lot of aerial application up in this area.
It's been quite the year for rust, and especially a lot of it moving farther north and east than we normally see it.
Yeah, and we read about it, last year, the guys in Indiana and Illinois that had it, and they'd said, it takes 30 to 50 bushels off the top. They weren't lying. That's exactly what it will do. So, no, overall, yeah, it was a good fall and happy with the results. So, looking forward to next year to see what we can raise out there.
Robbie had a little bit of everything this year, from big yields to a few mechanical hiccups. We can't wait to see what he does next harvest. Now we're headed to Kewaskum, Wisconsin, where Kyle Kudrowski just wrapped up his first year as one of our very own Renk dealers. Kyle talks through what it was like to step into his role, how his customers responded to new products and varieties, and why a neighbor with a spare combine is worth his weight in gold.
This is Kyle Kudrowski from Kewaskum.
What did the crops end up looking like this year, and what was your experience with the harvest?
Not going to lie, it was a great year of crops for growth and that. I had some customers, they told me I should be proud of putting Renk sign seeds up because they look really good. This year for me, it felt good. Getting out there, everything looked good. My first year, and they ain't always like that. Never know what Mother Nature does.
Oh yeah, it's always got its own curveballs, doesn't it?
My own experience, I always planted 568 forever. And since I'm a dealer now, I thought, well, I should really plant some stuff that I want to sell. So I did plant a few different varieties. And I got a smaller combine with the corn. I only could go 2 miles an hour. There was so much corn coming in. Otherwise it'd be going out the back end.
What new varieties did you plant this year?
I planted 485 and I did 579. I did 444. Let's see, that 582 Smart Stack. So I did a little bit of everything there, and it all was good corn. Everything. I couldn't believe you're paying for the genetics, but it does turn out in the end.
How did your selling of varieties go this year?
I think very well. Stopping with the people last year now, I had a handful of new customers myself I brought on last year now that they wanted to try it, and they bought all more this year. They really liked the Renk product. They said it did good. Yeah, I thought sales are very good this year also. And people are willing to try new varieties, see what's out there. We got a lot to offer. It's going to be a great rest of the selling year here.
Did you sell any beans this year?
Oh, yeah, we sold some beans.
What kind of beans you get out there?
We sold a lot of the 1980s and the 1750s were very good. I planted both of them myself. They were very good. A lot of guys were very happy with the beans during combining there. We got a good start on them, and then we had a lot of rain, but we got back at them and got them done, and it all worked out good too. A lot of guys said them 1750s, they were very surprised how good they do for early bean. They're very happy with them. A lot of repeat buyers on that same variety.
What was the most interesting thing you saw, whether it was from you or from one of your customers? Did you guys have was a smooth harvest, or did anyone, run over a raccoon?
No, nothing like that. Well, there you go, talking about building relationships, and then I broke the sickle on the bean head for my combine, but with 10 acres left to go, you call the neighbor up and he was done already, and sure, come get mine and help finish me up, and, it all worked out good. That's what friends are for, neighbors, you build that relationship when they need you, they're there,
It's important to, be working with those people and being close with those people near you.
Yeah, for sure. It's a small knit family. Everyone, when the time comes, people are here to help. There's a lot of good people out there.
At the end of the day, agriculture really is all about the people and relationships around you. Now, let's chat with Tom Smoglinski, a Renk dealer of more than 30 years in Michigan. Tom had high expectations for this season. He shares what went right, what didn't go well, and how his family rallied together to get across the harvest finish line.
This is Tom Smoglinski. I'm a Renk seed dealer over here in Port Hope, Michigan, about 140 miles north of Detroit. We're about 7 miles off the water of Lake Huron.
And how long have you been a dealer for Renk?
I got either 30 or 35 years in.
Tom, how many acres do you farm out there?
We're farming about 1,700.
So I know you and I have talked in person a couple times, but was your son helping out?
Yes. Both of my sons work at home on the farm, Evan and Grant. We get along really quite well. We have one full-time hired man, so it's pretty much the four of us doing all the work. We do hire outside help for truck drivers, but normally it's just us four taking care of the cattle and doing all the harvest and everything else that goes along with it.
Tell me about your expectation for harvest this year, and what was your experience?
Well, our expectations were on the higher side. We had a really good spring planting season, along with some pretty good rain throughout the summer. we had pretty good expectations for the harvest. Once we got harvesting, we were seeing what we were hoping to see. We had bean yields in the mid 70s in our best field and upper 60s throughout most of the rest of the field. Corn yields were all above 200, probably on average around at 240, maybe a field or two pushing 260. And we do harvest a fair amount of corn silage. And we seen corn silage yields mid to upper 20s tons at 35% dry matter, 55% moisture. So we had pretty good harvest, pretty good yields all the way through all our crops.
What do you think was your worst experience during harvest? Because I know it's something we can all relate to at some point.
Probably combining that competitor's strip of corn in our test plot. It was the poorest strip of corn we had.
Well, all right, Tom. Well, clearly we can see that you've rewarded us well for your 31 or 36 years of loyalty.
It was a fun fall, to say the least.
We couldn't agree more. For our final conversation today, we're with Joe Serbis from Renville County in Minnesota. Joe is a farmer, crop adjuster, and soybean council member whose season takes an unexpected turn. Following a devastating hailstorm in early June, Joe didn't have high expectations, but by harvest, the crop told a completely different story. Here's Joe.
Joe Serbis, Renville County farmer in Minnesota. Relatively small farmer, 500 acres in this area that we do farm corn and soybeans, a little sweet corn. I am a crop adjuster for the state of Minnesota, a certified crop adjuster, and I also am on the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council.
I'm going to assume some of that background is going to be pertinent today for your story, correct?
You are very correct, Seth. Yeah.
So my big question today for you, Joe, is what was your expectation for this year's crop and what was your experience actually?
You know what? Probably started early in May. Really got the crop in the ground, very timely. Everything just seemed to be really clicking in May. My expectation at that time was at least a normal year, which would have been about, let's just call it a 200 bushel. But as the corn came out of the ground, the emergence of what was just wonderful emergence. Things were looking great. Then we came to June, and then reality really kicked in. We had an extreme hail event here. You know, most of our acres are very congregated in one area, so we wiped out in the soybeans. Corn was just absolutely devastated. It was a June 2nd storm, and by June 9th, the corn was trying to heal itself, but it was just so complicated. My expectations changed. Your heart sank, and it looked like it was going to be a very challenging year.
And so then what happened next then as the year went on? So as a crop adjuster yourself, when you look out at and saw that hail damage, what did you think?
I was expecting that I would probably be going straight to multi-peril. The yield would be suppressed. I would be collecting from multi-peril at just at what level, and was just even through June, the corn, it really started to heal. It really greened up. We had to wait a little extra time before we went out there and did our final pass for taking care of our weeds out there. We timely got that done, the third week of June. Our corn was delayed behind everybody else's. They were done spraying and their crops look wonderful, and ours looked like it was always like a day late, dime short. It was just slow coming.
So when the storm came through, how did that affect your property and your area besides just your crops?
Oh my goodness. We were in the middle of a 2-mile stretch where all the power poles were snapped up. Yeah, my son came to our farm that night. He no more than came up the farm side, and we looked down the road, and the poles were all they were snapped off. The house severely hail damages, inch holes in the vinyl siding. The roof will need to be replaced. Maybe we lost some good Norway pines that surround our house, which really help with wind. Well, they're kind of gone right now. It was a very very intense afternoon is what it was.
Well, that's, I think, putting it lightly, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But we're here to talk about it and about the corn and very, very, very happy with the Renk varieties for the way they bounce back. And I give that a lot of credit to the genetics that we have in our seed these days.
It is good to hear that, for all things considered, we would consider going to be a bad year. I'm glad it all worked out. Keep moving me through the summer here then.
Yeah, things greened up. I would randomly walk out in the field, and the cornfield, of course, is what we're talking about here because the beans were totally replanted. And so we're going back to the corn, and I would randomly go out in the field and check, and you would have your deads from the hail, of course, but this is later June now. Things were really starting to green up and look good, and foliage was on. It was just looking like the corn was on its way again.
And then how did the rest of your summer shape up?
Probably a little lack of moisture again. Temperatures were good. We got into, that July time era, and many people were putting fungicides on. I was asked if I would be put on a fungicide, but still, I was a little reluctant, and I did not put fungicide on. Still feeling that not sure if my crop was going to be at the multi-peril level. I did not want to spend the money for fungicide, and so I did not.
And because normally, especially with that much hail damage, that's generally one of our biggest vectors for disease. And so you just were, as you said, it's expensive, correct?
It was the expense. And farmers normally do this. This is how we are. We're trying to do the best we can and trying to get the best yield. But I was just a little reluctant spending those dollars, application expense, and possibly that would just give me a little more yield. But actually, it isn't an expense when it comes to multi-peril because I would be collecting less if I would be getting more yield. So I did not. And as we came to harvest, everything was just so timely. People were harvesting their corn. We nosed in and checked it. And we maybe started picking when it was 69 about. And so we thought, why stop? The corn's really standing.
Yep.
It was standing wonderfully. Still expecting that I would have had some disease out there, maybe a failed stock or it's starting to fall down, but that did not occur. The corn was standing strong. The two varieties were 600 Smart Stack and the 579, and both just stood like champs. We took the 600, and we hauled it all to town. And when we went to the 579, that was relatively the same moisture as the 600.
Really?
Which really surprised me. Usually the 579 is a point and a half at least less. They were the same. And again, everything was hauled to town. Very pleasantly surprised when I started to figure back the numbers for the yield, and the 600 was a 195.
Wow.
And I was just taken back. And my son did the math on the 579, and I believe that was like a 188. The only difference I can tell why the yields would have been a little different is maybe because as a hailstorm came through, one field was planted north-south, one was east-west. Maybe that was a factor in why the 579 had a little less yield this time, only because it maybe got a little more beat up during the storm. It's the only thing I can figure.
So you ended up pretty much at what you would say a normal year, because I know you had mentioned earlier about 200 bushels is an acre is what you expect to see. So you're a little shy of that, but not by much by any means.
By no means. I would call this was just a wonderful year. I was pleasantly surprised. I call it a very successful year.
Oh, absolutely.
Considering the storm, the damage, how the plant healed, bounced back. I called 25 really a very successful year in my eyes.
You came out on pretty much the good end of things.
Yeah, and I only can compare that to many years ago. It was actually June 9th is when the storm came through. It was very similar back in 1971. And by the time we replanted our beans, I believe we only received like 9 bushels that year for beans.
Whoa.
And the corn that year, if I remember what my dad had said, was like 43 on corn. So we've made great strides, say.
I would say that is, absolutely a lot of progress there. 5 different growers, 5 unique regions, and 5 completely distinct growing seasons. Hearing from Marty, Robbie, Kyle, Tom, and Joe reminds us why harvest is never just about numbers on the yield map. It's about the people living the story behind those numbers. Each of them saw something the others didn't and experienced different challenges and wins. Together, they paint a real picture of what farming across the Midwest looks like. Unpredictable, resilient, and full of memories that stay with you long after the fields are cleared. We're so thankful that they took the time to share their season's lessons with us, and to you for listening and joining the conversation. But before we wrap up, I want to turn it over to you. How did your harvest go this year? What surprised you? What stood out in your fields? We'd love to hear how things went in your operation, so drop us a message, reach out to your local Renk dealer, or connect with us online. These conversations help us learn and support you better. And honestly, they're some of our favorite stories to hear. Thanks for tuning in and for taking us along with you this season. I'm Max Renk, and this has been Renk Seeds of Innovation.
Be sure to hit subscribe for a notification when a new episode drops each month. And follow Renk on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. This has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast, innovating agriculture one seed at a time.